Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in once more into the abyss that is the dungeon of the Doctors of Doom, where I am your host, Alex the Minnow Sparks, and joining me this week is my co-host, Mitch, Hawkeye power level at best black, and the best producer in the biz, at least according to his mother. Hi, Allie. Welcome in, Vinny, the wet match Santucci. To be honest, I'm not really sure why anyone's listening anymore after we all got absolutely shellacked in fantasy this week, both in DoD and with our podcast league team, losing to Go Ducks. But say hello to all the Lost Elvers out there that happen to show up anyway, fellas.
Hello.
Hello,
Wait,
assholes.
shellacked. I think I would have beaten both of you if I just didn't have to play the highest score of the week.
Fantasy D is a thing. I preach that every
And-
single year.
Oh, and then according to Vinny's theory, let's go and look at the standings of points against. This is not looking good for Vinny's theory of why our division has the least points against.
All I hear is blah, blah, blah. I'm a loser. All right, so a lot to cover, and we started way late because of somebody. Not going to name names, Mitch. So let's go through it here.
What year is this? Is this 2006 or 2025?
The difference is I actually have stuff that I had to do. That's the difference. 2006. And then it's like I probably just didn't do anything all day and blah blah blah. But this one, yeah, dude. I mean, I'm getting a little frustrated with the traffic in San Diego, to say the least. But what can you do?
Grown-up problems.
No, it's not even grown-up problems. It's like 6 miles to go 40 minutes to go 6 miles. Anyways, this is not a traffic podcast. This is not Waze Plus. My bad.
You sure? You sure it's not a traffic podcast? You don't want to sit here and discuss traffic for the next 20 minutes?
Speaking of traffic, today's episode is brought to you by
Waze.
All
Google Maps, which is terrible.
right. Alex, you were saying? I'm sure you want to continue talking about traffic, considering you live in.
Yeah, I was just gonna. I was thinking maybe we could talk some football. So let's get started with injury talk. We did that last week. So last week we had a bunch of injuries to quarterbacks. This week it was the skill players. A lot of skill players went down. A lot of major injuries. A couple of guys out for season now. James Conner, Najee Harris. A lot more guys on the injury report. They're gonna miss significant time. CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans. Just man, it's been rough for fantasy. Like a lot of, especially compared to last year. I feel like there's been a lot of injuries in the first 2 weeks of the season compared to last year. What are you guys' thoughts? What do you think is like the biggest, most impactful ones? I mean, obviously losing Connor for the year is probably one of them, but like, what do you guys think are the biggest injuries that are out there that are hurting people?
Oh, Burrow. It's not even close. So many people probably had so much bang. Vinny's like, which offense do you want to have invest in this? And everyone's like, oh man, Bengals such an obvious answer. Give a better answer. Well, hindsight's 2020, and anyone with Bengals players, good luck.
Yeah, I think I might have. I think it's bigger than that too, Mitch. Even it's like
Oh, for sure.
so you have Burrow. Let's say you're drafting in our league. Burrow goes in the second round. Chase goes in the first round. Burrow second round. Chase Brown second round. T Higgins third round. So you have 4 players in the top 3 rounds of a draft, which is fairly common across all leagues. Depending on quarterback points. And Burrow's like the one person that can't get injured in that offense to not plummet everybody's value. So Burrow gets hurt, Chase's value plummets, Chase Brown's value plummets, Higgins' value plummets. Where like anybody else, like Chase gets hurt, Burrow's still going to be fine because he has Higgins and he's proved in the past that he can play without one of them. Chase Brown would still be fine, Higgins would be fine. Higgins gets hurt, the other three's value isn't like that one injury tanked 4 values versus an isolated.
And then it goes, and then, sorry, yeah, you're right. And then you can have the opposite point of view where it's like, JJ McCarthy's injury actually helps everyone on the Vikings' value. So it's like these things are kind of hard to predict on which team's going to lose their value that you want invested in, and then who's going to actually have positive injuries. I don't know how to say that, but yeah, like that's very hard to predict that JJ McCarthy. I mean, I guess it's not. But yeah, it's like vice versa. It's pick your poison. You either have a QB injury that helps or QB injury that hurts. It's fascinating so far. I think it'll even out over obviously 16 weeks, but just kind of the reality that we live in now.
Yeah, but on back, to add an additional point on top of Mitch's, I would say like I'm so surprised at some of like the major wide receiver injuries now that CD's out. And Nico's kind of hurt. McLaurin's a little hurt. Evans is out. So there's I don't know. I feel like we're really early for such high value injuries. Um, Aaron Jones, even Tyrone Tracy, depending on leagues. Like, there's a lot. I feel like we are experiencing a lot of really early injuries. James Conner. So I almost just say it's the amount versus the effect.
Yeah, just to for go. Let's go back in time a little bit. We were criticizing Nolan for going Kenneth Walker. We understood the pick because of the running back drop. Not to get in that whole argument again, but let's just replay the third round of what Nolan's picking up against. Okay, so Walker's the first pick of the third round. Then it goes Nico, Patrick, meh, Puka. There's a great one. Okay, Puka stays healthy. There's the league winner. Of course, Adam gets that value pick. Then it goes Drake London, George Kittle, Brian Thomas, nope. T. Higgins, definitely no. A.J. Brown, GTFO. Chuba Hubbard, good pick. Omari Hampton, good pick. Mike Evans, no. So everyone's saying before the draft, I know you said it, Vinny. I know Miles said it to me. I know Matt said it to me. I know like half the league said it to me, if personally or not in an overall conversation. I can't pass up a running back in rounds 1 and 2 because the wide receivers are so much better rounds 3 and 4 that if you go wide receiver in rounds 1 and 2, like a CeeDee Lamb or a Justin Jefferson, look at the running backs you have to take in rounds 3 and 4. The opposite is true because all the running backs that went in that time from Walker, Hampton, Hubbard, Connor, I know he got hurt, Hall, Kamara, all of them except for RJ Harvey have done amazing, okay? And then all those wide receivers have done terrible. And you could even throw in McConkey's in the beginning of round 4. I guess all the way down to Sutton at the beginning of round 5. But yeah, it's the opposite. Hindsight's 2020. Oh, I got to get that running back in the first couple rounds so then I could I like the wide receivers better later. It's actually the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. It round 3 is looking a little rough in our league, even though I feel like there wasn't any pick that was like Kenneth Walker was the most egregious pick of the third round. It's the only good one. Well, besides Puka, obviously.
You guys are so good about getting us off track. Like, hey, let's talk about injuries. All right, let's talk about the draft rounds 3 and 4. Like,
listen,
that's
where we
injuries
shine.
and the picks.
We shine in the improv.
Yeah, the injuries lead to it.
Why do I bother writing this stuff then if we're shining in the improv? All right, well, since we're not going to talk about injuries, then let's
we can go back to the injuries.
No, you've already skipped it. We're moving. Mitch, we have to move on. You were literally 28 minutes late to a podcast we only had an hour and 15 minutes for, so we got to keep going.
George Kittle's injuries hurting.
So, well, yeah, okay, we'll bring up some injuries. Speaking of injuries, one player in particular suffered a lot of injuries, and that's Sylvie. Let's go to the rosters here.
Pew, 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 pew.
Where's she at here? Serial killers. And then if we go to week 3, because this is what a roster looked like in week 3, she lost James Conner for the year. Mike Evans, hamstring. That's probably going to be IR 4 weeks usually. CeeDee Lamb, high ankle sprain. That's 3 to 6. And then Tyrone Tracy, shoulder. He's probably going to miss multiple weeks as well. Not to mention Cam Scatterbu kind of stepped in. And she already had Justin Fields in concussion protocol missing. So decimated by injury, which led to a blockbuster trade. If you go to week 4, you'll notice that her team is very different. She now has JCM, Ricky Pearsall, Ladd McConkey, and no longer has CeeDee Lamb because I made a trade where you two both thought I gave away way too much, and maybe I did. Hopefully I didn't. But I shipped 3 players off to give her depth in exchange for 1 player. And this is before we knew how long CeeDee Lamb would be out. So I'm really hoping it's more of the 3-week side and not the 6-week side for his injury. So what do you guys think of the trade? I know you've told me that you think I got swindled, but I'd love to hear it on the podcast before it's recorded.
I think naturally you definitely colluded with Sylvie to get CeeDee Lamb. We know that happened. So no, I think just go back on Sylvie's week 3. If that happened to me, I'm driving to Oregon where they've legalized euthanasia. I just can't imagine being so stoked to watch Sunday football and then you lose James Conner, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, and Tyrone Tracy all within like an hour of each other. Like, dude, that's so miserable. Nothing is less fun when it comes to fantasy football than watching half of your roster just go down the tube. I don't think I think value-wise, you gave up more value, but if you go to your team, Alex, like you didn't lose anything. You lost you basically lost the backup wide receivers. Like that's it. You just traded backup wide receiver, backup players
Well,
for
to
a
be fair,
starter.
I would have started Pearsall moving forward probably after what he did weeks
Yeah,
1 and 3.
yeah, but you also traded that for who, in my opinion, is still the potential wide receiver one on a points per game average.
Yeah.
So you inherited all the risk, like naturally because of an injured player who may or may not come back to the same, but it makes a lot of sense for you. It just was good value. Like I don't think anybody could complain about the trade, even though you end up with a first round talent. Because with drafting, trading guys rounds like what 3 and below, 4 and below, wherever you took McConkey. So it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean,
Didn't
I
the
think.
winner?
Oh, good.
No, go for it.
I was gonna say it's really gonna come down to how good is Pearsall, because he's broken the century mark in 2 of the 3 weeks. So if that is who he is, and he's a guy who's gonna consistently be getting 80 plus yards a week, then that's kind of on the same level as what CeeDee Lamb is doing, and that's kind of scary. So if he's that good and CeeDee Lamb doesn't come back for 6 weeks, then I lose this trade. But if Ricky Pearsall starts to come back down to earth a little bit when Kittle comes off IR, Juwan Jennings is healthy again. Pearsall comes back to earth. I don't know what I said. If he comes back to earth a little bit, and then CeeDee Lamb comes back after 3 or even 4 weeks, and he's back to full, 100%, then I think, not that I win the trade, but I think it worked out for me, right? So that's where it's basically just going to come down to that, right? We're gonna know in 4 weeks probably who got the better end of this trade, or if we both got a good deal.
I got a couple questions that's leading the witness, but let's pretend CeeDee Lamb has this high ankle sprain preseason game 3. Well, how does that affect his draft position? Let's say he has the same injury, same high ankle sprain. It's preseason week 3.5, 4, whatever. That week, you got 12 days before kickoff or whatever, and you're hearing that Lamb's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks.
I think he's
having a
probably still
preseason
drafted as a wide receiver 1, but he's not drafted as high. So for example, most people had it Chase, Lamb, Jefferson as the top 3. I think guys like St. Brown, Nakua, Collins, and Neighbors might leapfrog Lamb in that scenario, but I still think he's taken before that second tier wide receiver.
Sure. So he's taking the first pick of round 2.
Well, no, Collins went in round 3.
Yeah, our wide receivers dropped. That's what I'm saying. Is Nico didn't go to round 3.
Yeah.
So between round 2, first pick of round 2 to second pick of round 3, only Amon-Ra St. Brown went. So if Amon-Ra St. Brown goes where Sylvie takes CeeDee Lamb, how far down does Lamb drop?
That's what I'm saying.
Pretty far.
I think he probably drops to round late round 2 or early round 3.
Sure. So it's not too big of a drop. But then the issue becomes the reason why people are backing on him is because a lot of times when people have preseason injuries, you don't want that player because then it usually lingers throughout the year. There would have been that whole narrative of, oh, if he's got a high ankle sprain at the beginning of the season, he's just going to be battling it all year. Well, this is the same scenario in my case. Is now he's going to have, except 3 weeks he's gotten instead of the injury happening 3 weeks ago. But it's the same situation. Over the next 14 weeks, he's going to be battling an injury that doesn't go away, that's not surgery related, that is just going to be playing through pain. So that leads me to my second lead in the witness question. They got the Packers next. Do they win or lose that game?
Oh, they're going to lose that
Nice.
game.
Okay, so there's a 1-3. Then they got the Jets the week after that. Do they win or lose that at the Jets?
That could go either way.
Okay, so
I think the Jets are. I think the Cowboys are better than their record shows, and I also think the Jets are better than their record shows.
Okay, then they got the Commanders.
Honestly, the Commanders don't look great. I take the Cowboys. I think.
Wow, I would never. Even with Mariota, they look good.
With Mariota, they look better than they looked with Daniels.
Then they got Broncos.
Yeah, probably.
Never lost there. Yeah, and then they got the Cardinals. So that's 4 weeks. So they might have one win in there, maybe. And then after that, guess what their schedule is? Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, Vikings. Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, Vikings. They're not getting a win in that month. So you're telling me right here they might get one win in the next 8 games, and they're gonna throw out CeeDee Lamb for the rest of this year? No way. If you're 1-7, 1-8, 2-7, 2-8, or whatever you want to tally it up to, if they can beat the Commanders or not, sure. But if I'm CeeDee Lamb and I have a high ankle sprain and I come back and I get hurt, they're just gonna shut him down. They're gonna shut Dak down too pretty soon in a couple months. Like I've been usually pretty good at this kind of stuff. With the dabble stuff and the Russ and the Dart and the Kirk Cousins stuff. It's if you look at schedule, they're getting 1 or 2 wins in the next 2 months, guys. So we're gonna bring back Lamb after 4 to 6 weeks, and they've gotten one win in that for what? For what? That's my biggest concern with this trade is Alex is taking a massive risk that he just gave up potentially a top 12 fantasy wide receiver. The only thing going against Pearsall right now is, Ayuk might come back. Kittle will take away target shares. But we've seen many offenses where the tight ends open up the field for the rest of the wide receivers. I'm not exactly sure.
It's not just that though. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but so here was my first of all, just full disclosure on like the trade with Sylvie. I didn't offer Pearsall. She negotiated for Pearsall. I would have much rather given up someone else. I'm going to give her credit there. I even straight up told her, like, I wished you hadn't asked for him, but, like, I know that I'm asking for Lamb, so sure. So that being said, my concern with Pearsall, let me pull up, you guys can see my screen again, right? Let me go to Sylvie's team. I can just go to week 3 and see. So my concern with Pearsall here is if you look at the stat line, 8 for 11 is great. That's with Mac Jones. Brock Purdy is expected to be back this week or next. And the first week with Brock Purdy, yes, he broke the century mark, but it was only on 4 catches. And generally speaking, if you're going to be a wide receiver 1, you need to be a guy who's getting the ball 6, 7, 8 times a game. So only 4 catches was a little concerning. I mean, it's still a great stat line. It was still 7 targets. I was still high on him, but I'm just saying, like, if you look at the, week 2, he went 4 for 6, and that was a week that Juwan Jennings played, and Juwan Jennings that week went 5 of 10. Like, not a great catch rate, but he had 4 more targets than Pearsall, right? So, like, it's not just Kittle coming back, it's Kittle, it's Jennings, it's Ayuk, and it's Brock Purdy, which is a different quarterback. I just think there's so many variables there that is what made it for me to be like, all right, I'd rather have the Lamb angle. Also, you keep mentioning that they're going to have nothing to play for. I had Lamb all last season because I drafted him in the first round. I wish that was a mistake, but whatever. They had nothing to play for last year, and he still played every week. So it wasn't like, we're going to shut down CeeDee Lamb because we have nothing to play for. Last year he played 15 games. The 2 games he missed, he was injured. It wasn't like he didn't want to play. So, like, he played 15 to 17 games last year, and that was without Dak for pretty much the entire year. So they had nothing to play for last year, and he played every game. So I'm not really... I get what you're saying, that, like, they might shut him down. I don't think they're going to shut him down.
No, they only shut him down because of the injury, though. If he was healthy and they were losing, who cares? Go out there and play him and sell some tickets for home games and stuff like that, obviously. But I'm saying if I was Lamb and my career is on the line, we see this a lot where guys battle the preseason injury and come back and play that year, and they're just injured the whole year.
Yeah, but look, I obviously don't know him personally, but, like, Lamb to me doesn't feel like a diva. Like, he even if you watch the game, he was on the sideline the entire game, trying to be able to go back into the game. Like, and he's the one who said, I'm gonna be ready to play next week. Now, I know that's not realistic. There's adrenaline flowing, testosterone, your leg hasn't swollen as much yet. So I get that. But I'm just saying, like, that to me is not the attitude of a guy who's like, well, I'm hurt, I'm not gonna play. You know what I mean? I just don't see him being the kind of guy who's like, I'm hurt, I'm not gonna go out there.
Yeah. I mean, you better hope Dak also stays healthy the whole year too. That's just like.
No, look, there's a lot of variables involved in it, but it was this is a move that it's one of those moves that this was the time to make it because she lost. I don't know if I said this on here. So this week, for those who don't know, Sylvie had she lost 3 starters and 1 backup to injury. So massive injuries, right? So, like, this was the week to make the move because this is the week where I could trade depth for a superstar. Right? Any other week of the season, you usually can't make that deal, right? You're trading superstars or you're trading depth for depth. This is the only time where I could trade depth to guys that I'm not starting, or like my wide receiver 2 for a superstar wide receiver 1 to take his place. Yes, there's risk, but this is a move that if it works out, it can be a league winner. Whereas if I just kept the roster I had, nothing risk, nothing gain. So we'll see. Trades historically don't work out in DoD, especially for me, but there was an opportunity and I took it. All right.
Yeah, I'd be nervous with, like, if you look at a lot of the starting wide receivers for all the other fantasy managers, like if you look at Chris's team, he drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. and Brian Thomas in rounds 3, 4, and he's starting McMillan and Quentin Johnson. Like, the only person starting the same 2 wide receivers they drafted is me, because my team sucks, and Adam, or I guess Cameron. Cameron hasn't touched Hill and Metcalf, but like Adam's 2 Rams wide receivers are the only ones that are doing well.
The double Ram strat. The double Ram strat is brilliant.
But everyone else, if you go look down their roster, some of their quote-unquote league-winning wide receivers are not. I know I'm not trying to compare Brian Thomas to CeeDee Lamb, but you get what I'm trying to say is I don't know if you're like if you take away the name Lamb and the name Pearsall, and I said player A, player B, I feel like a lot more people would be picking Pearsall, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I get what you're saying. I just agree to disagree. I think Vinny and I are higher on Lamb. Yeah. You're higher on Pearsall. We'll find out, right? Well,
and also Vinny said it perfectly. You're not taking too much of a risk because you're not hurting your starters in the meantime.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would have after like I started Jacoby Myers this week just because like Jacoby Myers was averaging 11 targets a game, so I went with that as my wide receiver 2. Then this week, Pearsall got 11 targets and Jacoby Myers got 4. So obviously that didn't work out. But yeah, and now I picked up Trey Tucker, which, if everyone knew in the season that Rome Odunze and Trey Tucker would both be top 3 wideouts, right? We all kind of knew that. Quentin Johnson be a top 5 wideout. We all kind of had that on our board. All right, let's move on. Sorry, I know I'm kind of rushing, but we got a lot to cover. So I guess let's talk more about some injuries that kind of affected things, and that is where my first question is going to come up. Quarterbacks, guys. We had 5 backup quarterbacks start games this week. Of those 5, 3 of them won. One of them lost on a last second field goal and he was balling out. So I'm calling that a win for 4, really, like as far as how they played. One of them played poorly. He got absolutely blasted by another rookie. So I mean, it was not possible for them all to win, but he admittedly got blasted. So 4 of the 5 backup QBs that played this week played well due to injuries to the starters. Also, you had Michael Penix. It was an absolute trash can fire and got benched for not putting up any points against the Panthers, who were terrible. And then you also have Flacco, who's got 2 rookies waiting in the rings to take his job. And then technically Tua has a rookie behind him, and we don't really know how healthy he's going to stay, and that team's already 0-3 and looking not so great. So my question is going to be, who gets benched first? It doesn't have to be one of the ones that already had a backup play, but just the point that I'm making is, like, there have been some kind of bad QB play this year, and some backups are kind of balling out. So which quarterback do you guys think gets benched first this season? Like, not like benched in a game, but like straight up loses his job. You can't choose Russell Wilson because he's already lost his job. That's why I asked this question now, because Russell Wilson already got benched for Jackson Dart. He'll be starting this week. So you can't pick that one. And one last fun fact about backup quarterbacks, because this might affect your vote. Marcus Mariota, who started this week in place of an injured player, has been a top 10 fantasy quarterback 3 times in the last year. So over the last calendar year, he's been a top 10 fantasy QB 3 times. Question, how many games did he start in the last year?
Who?
Marcus Mariota.
Oh, gotcha, yeah. In the last 3 years, 0.
In the last year, in the last calendar year, so that's roughly
0.
He's had 1 start. He started 1 game, but he's been a top 10 fantasy QB 3 times across that 1 game because he's coming for injuries. CJ Stroud. Stroud over the last year, and by the way, that's over the course of the last calendar year. So that's 20 games. CJ Stroud, who's played 22 games because of playoffs in that time, and has started every single one of them, only has 2 games as a top 10 fantasy QB. So,
wow,
there are some bad quarterbacks out there. So my question again: which current starting quarterback do you think gets benched first?
That's such BS question because someone spewed for the whole summer about how bad Russell Wilson was, and you guys were like, nah. I was like, well, Russell Wilson was so bad on the Steelers, how Rodgers can't be better, blah, 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 and everything. So now I can't use Wilson as an answer. That's messed up. Well, all right.
First of all, if everyone and their mother knew that Wilson was going to lose his job to Dart. At no point in time did I ever say that, oh, Russell Wilson's going to hold Dart off for the whole year. That's just bogus. I never said that. You can go back and listen to all the pod. And yes, I purposely And for the record, I would have excluded Russell Wilson in this even if he hadn't already been benched, but he has, so it makes it easy.
You just pretty much got to follow the money on this answer, and then you can figure it out. Anyone being paid above that 45, 50 mark is not going to get benched, and if they are lose their job to injury, we'll get it coming back, aka Purdy and Mac Jones, that kind of stuff. So to be honest with you, I don't really know. I guess it's going to be like Spencer Rattler. Or maybe like obviously Michael Penix because he's already been kind of benched. That's kind of some low hanging fruit there.
Well, yeah, but he's still going to start this week, right? So,
yeah, the real interesting one for me comes down to the benching of J.J. McCarthy because it's not like Mac Jones has come in and done a little bit better than Purdy, so it's a little bit not bad, but no, Wentz was. I know it's one game, but if Wentz plays well, next couple weeks or whatever, that's a serious issue because they're trying to win now. So, there's no way Mariota for, Daniels. There's no way, you know what I mean? It could be Flacco, I guess is the Flacco or McCarthy. That's my answers. Your turn, Benny.
Yeah, I think probably McCarthy is the easiest. Those are the two easiest, right? Flacco and McCarthy. I will say, I've been kind of looking in. I know you said like Penix has technically already been benched. I don't know. Has anybody like seen like Raheem Morris's interviews? So they asked him immediately after the game about giving Kirk a chance to start this week, and he like emphatically said no. Like he was like pissed off by the question. And then they talked about it again about like does Kirk have a chance to start this season? And his first sentence out was Kirk already lost the job last year. Now we're moved on to Michael Penix. And it was just a weird like it's almost like there's something in the building that like I know Kirk has been pretty frustrated by the whole process, but like deservedly so. Obviously he still shows up. Obviously he knows the game plan because he came in and did whatever he had to do last week. But like there's a really strange rift in that locker room with Kirk Cousins and the Falcons coming from a direction from the Falcons. So I'm like, I wonder what happened this offseason, like how pissed off Kirk actually got behind the scenes, because it seems like the Falcons are burying Kirk in this entire process without necessarily lifting up Michael Penix.
Well, you have to shut it down because they took Michael Penix in the draft to eventually be their starter. They made the decision last year to make him the starter, and you can't run back the clock. Like there might be people in the building who said, "Hey, we did that too early. We should have given him another chance. Let Penix develop more, whatever." But once you make that switch, you can't switch back, right? Like once you say, "Hey, this guy's our starter," you can't switch back. He started 3 games last year. He started 3 games this year. He's only 6 games in. You cannot say this is our future. We're going to go with him, and then 6 games in be like, "Nah, we were wrong. We're going to go with Kirk." Like that basically just means that draft pick's done, right? It's over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can't. It's a confidence killer for both the locker room and the organization and the fans. You just can't do that. So you have to emphatically make it known that he is your guy. And the reason they're having to be so emphatic about it is because he has played so abysmal. I mean, like I said, the Panthers were statistically the worst defense of all time. Not last year, of all time. Last year is the worst of all time, and he put up 0 points against them this week.
Yeah.
You have to come out and say something about that.
I saw a stat that Michael Penix doesn't have. I know he hasn't started very many games, but he doesn't have a single win in which the opponent scored more than 7 points. So they actually have the second least points for in the league. The least points for in the league are the Texans. So the Browns have more points than the Texans and the Falcons right now. So just that's to put that into perspective. Even the Saints have more points than the Falcons, which is pretty crazy. But I think if I want to go, I'll double down with Mitch. J.J. McCarthy is an easy, low-hanging fruit to me to get benched. I think that they can justify it, similar to like what the Colts did with Anthony Richardson. Like, hey, he just needs more time to develop. He's still young. Like, he's still a quarterback of the future. But I just, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of options out there right now for players to get benched aside from like the Rattler and the Flacco. Unless somebody goes like egregious and is like Trevor Lawrence needs to go or CJ Stroud needs to go. I don't know, but
well, then let me rephrase the question. Do either of you think someone's going to get benched then?
Josh
I
Allen
think somebody will get benched. Yeah, Flacco, Rattler. Do we count Jake Browning? I think his time is probably limited, as well. But maybe Tua. Like, what are the Well, the Dolphins never have a good backup. They literally just throw in the worst quarterback in the world behind him every single time. So, um, yeah, I think somebody gets benched, but it's going to be like a Flacco or a Rattler, like somebody that shouldn't necessarily be starting in the NFL currently.
Okay, yeah, I mean those are both guys that have rookies behind them. So, all right, moving on to the next segment here. So this is the one I had you guys think about. This segment's going to be called Nostradamus or Nostradamus. So at this, going into the season, we all kind of had our own predictions and reads on people. This isn't necessarily stuff we gave on the air, but we all had our own draft cheat sheets where we ranked players, what have you. So the question is, I'm going to ask you guys for 3 guys you got right and 3 you got wrong, and we'll go one at a time. And what I mean by got right, this is someone that you had good feeling about. You like, hey, this year they're going to break out, they're going to do well. You had they were going to outperform expectations, basically. So again, I'm not saying like, oh, I think Bijan Robinson's going to be good. Yeah, of course you did. Everyone did. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying you had a read on a player, you thought this guy's going to be good, and you hit. Or you thought, hey, this guy's overrated, he's going to bust this year, and he did. Or the opposite. Now that we're 3 weeks in, it could be someone that like, hey, I was really high on this guy, and he has been terrible. Or, man, I was really low on this guy, and he has absolutely outperformed expectations, and I missed on him. I wish I'd taken him. So either one of you guys can go first. Give me one guy that you feel like you were right about. Or I can go first if you're ready.
I'm sure I can answer for Benny. ETN.
Is that your guy?
No, that's your guy. I thought you were.
Yeah. I think for me, I'll start with one that I was right on. What's actually kind of funny is I don't want to make this too biased about like people on my team, but somehow I ended up drafting a lot of the guys that I was high on.
Well, yeah, I mean,
also
we all do that.
Drafted a lot of the guys that I was wrong on. I haven't broke 80 points all season yet, so don't get too high on my team. But ETN, yeah, I mean, it was more. I don't want to single it out though. It was like I didn't know who was going to be good. In leagues that I got Bigsby and not ETN, I was kind of happy too. Like I just wanted a piece of that backfield, and you just hope for the best. So obviously ETN has been working out great for me so far. But high efficiency, like I still am a little scared about his usage and volume, but I'm not going to hate. Right now he's RB8 in our league, so definitely something I feel like I was right on.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, Travis Etienne went in like, I don't know, like the 9th round, something pretty far down, and he's now currently a top 10 running back, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, top 8 running back for a guy that, the guys above him all went first. Well, not James Cook, but first round. So a bunch of first rounders above him, and even the other guys above him were like 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounders for the most part, and he was way lower. So yeah, for sure, you definitely hit a home run on that one. Mitch, what about you? Who's your first one?
Imagine being in DoD with 2 top 8 running backs, a number 2 quarterback, a number 2 wide receiver, and being 1 and 2 and can't break 80 points. Oh, that's right, because all those players are on my bench. So, yeah, just a little fun fact about you can hit these players, but you're not starting them in the first 2 or 3 weeks unless you're super risky. So, yeah.
I'll take the low-hanging fruit. I was very interested in the Colts offense, so I'm gonna take a little victory lap here on the Colts. I'm not sure how it's gonna play out over a 16-week season, but Daniel Jones, they're calling him Indiana Jones, and he looks like MVP. I think he's got 4th or 5th right now in MVP voting or MVP odds. Not voting, sorry, MVP odds. I was very interested. I had Taylor ahead of almost all the running backs except for 3. So I guess I'll just take. And the one thing I'm most upset about was I didn't want to do Mark Andrews in the 6th. I was always going to do Tyler Warren, but I was like, I got Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if I want the tight end and the running back of the Colts. And what if they are bad under Daniel Jones? I'm going to mess up real bad here. I'd rather take the safe pick of Andrews on the Ravens. So. I'll go against what I was saying and for what I'm saying. I feel like I was one of the few people on to the Colts very early on this offseason.
Yeah, it was a good call.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Taylor currently RB1, and it's not close. He and James Cook both are absolutely crushing it. So for sure. I'll go ahead and give my first one. Oops, didn't mean to click on that. Sorry. For me, it's Emeka Ibuka. I was super, super high on him. You guys heard me talk about him a lot. As you can see, he's currently a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. So let me give you some stats here. Baker's a stud. I was very high on Baker. He has led the league in touchdowns for the last 2 seasons. Godwin has been out. Evans is older. Kate Otten going into the season was hurt. Sterling going into the season was hurt. So to start the year, we knew he was going to be a starter from day one. He was a first-round draft pick, so they had high hopes for him. And he's currently wide receiver 10 in points. And now that Evans is out, his future is even more bright. Plus, I mean, for those who saw it, he had an absolute sick catch to help win the game this past week. He made a couple of clutch grabs in the fourth quarter that led to them hitting a game-winning field goal. So one of them being a one-handed grab. So yeah, Ibuka I was super high on. Miles took him the pick before me, and I'm still salty about it because that guy was an absolute stud.
Yeah, I mean that like little stretch right there where it was like Egbuka, Pearsall, and I want to say somebody else as well. It's so funny that those are those like weird off players, right? That like let me see when did that run of wide receivers get drafted? I've got the draft list pulled up here. We're looking at end of round 7 in our league, and you have a run of Jalen Waddle, Rashee Rice. I'm just naming the wide receivers. Jalen Waddle, Rashee Rice, Egbuka, Pearsall, Pittman, and then, heck, let's throw Tyler Warren in there at that pick.
Yeah.
Like, that little run, and I know Waddle hasn't been great, but he's wide receiver 24 in our league. Rashee Rice will probably come back and be a top 20 wide receiver. But, like, Egbuka and Pearsall, it's so strange that, like, they fell so far in so many leagues when they had the potential that they did. Like, I just think, like, that's that whole analyst risk perception that Mitchell always talks about is like, you may believe that they're top 15 talent in a league,
Exactly.
but you're not dumb enough to put them in a top 15 of a ranking, because if you're wrong, everybody's going to be like, dude, that was a terrible choice. But like everybody knew Egbuka and Pearsall had top 15 potential, and nobody wanted to bite the bullet on them. So it's really fascinating to me that like that the entire population, like ADP wise even, like they just fell when they're so good. So yeah, great. I mean, I agree, Alex. That's a good one to be right on for sure.
All right, let me hear your number 2 for one of you guys.
I'll go again. I think it's a very similar thing to and I guess we'll just play. I have other ones. I mean, but this is something we talked about. You know, Mitch talked about the Colts offense and how he was really high on it. And then Mitch also like kind of pounded the drum a lot for the Bears offense, but didn't know who it was going to be.
I did.
I was so thrilled that Rome Odunze fell in the 10th round that I didn't even realize that I passed up on Brian Robinson Jr. to handcuff Christian McCaffrey, right? Like I was drug in the mud for that, like after the draft. Right now, Rome Odunze is wide receiver 2 in DoD.
And guess who number wide receiver?
Clearly the number 1 option in Chicago, which is an offense that is trending in the right direction. It's not elite, it's not great, but it's good. And you always want the top player on a good team. And I know right now it's touchdown dependent, but he's getting targets. He's getting the ball. He's obviously his favorite target. So, I mean, Rome Odunze I had pretty high on my list as like a late round target. I didn't really think he was going to be top 20, top 10, top 2, but a guy that you're like, okay, if the Bears offense hits, this is the guy that I think the value matches the risk. So, yeah, super thrilled about him. So
I mean, to add to that, look at the QB list right now, Alex. Go to QBs. Just click QBs.
Yep. 1 second. I wonder if we're going to be talking about Caleb Williams.
Number 2 overall, contending with Lamar, Caleb. So let's just put it in perspective. Ben Johnson has put a QB number 2 overall, a wide receiver 2 overall, a running back at 16 overall, and a second wide receiver at 26. None of those guys were fantasy relevant last year. Not one. And most people said the Bears were terrible. Now they might still be terrible in real life. Let's not get over it. But coordinators create fantasy gold. It's just the way it is. I mean, Caleb wasn't even a top 16 guy last year? I forget, top 15, 14? He's number 2. I know it's early, but just look at the difference Ben Johnson's made on that team. To Vinny's point, it's very, very cowardly of me to be like, I know someone on the Bears is going to be a top player, but I don't know who. So I'm not going to take much credit for that. I just didn't know what the value of each round was. I should have realized Odunze was going to go so late. I figured someone, because of the Ben Johnson, would have him targeted and take him early because our league's so good at drafting. So I just taken off all Bears players, and that was cowardly of me. But you were not a coward, and it seems to be working out very well for you. So I just wanted to compliment you on that one.
Gracias.
One other thing I will compliment, because I don't really want to do ones that I've predicted right. I think it's more fun to point out ones that you guys have been right and more stuff that I've been wrong. It's more fun. The Christian McCaffrey thing for me, Vinny, was also an extremely hard pick to make for someone. I think you should be able to enjoy that pick as well as part of this segment, because if you look at target receiving, not just running backs, look at all of them, all wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs. The number 2 targeted player in the NFL is Christian McCaffrey with 32 receptions. Okay, let's just put this in perspective. Last year, Neighbors had 170 targets. Devon Achane and Bucky Irving were the 2 most targeted running backs at they had 70 and 65 receptions, and they were targeted around to 100. Do you know what pace Christian McCaffrey's on right now? It's insane. If he's that player, Vinny, you just need a quarterback that can score points, hopefully Caleb or whatever, and that's a great pick. Whereas a lot of other people, including the people who picked in front of you, probably just said, I'm not taking McCaffrey this year. And then eventually, once McCaffrey fell to a certain part, then everyone has to start considering it. But I was like you, or not like you, Vinny, where I said, even if McCaffrey falls to me, not happening. So I'll give you a compliment on that one, too. And then the last one I'll give an Alex a compliment on is, well, Amarian Hampton was low-hanging fruit for all of us. We all kind of liked him, so I won't do that one. But Alex was legitimately one of the few people on Keenan Allen. No joke. I had probably even forgotten about him completely. I'm so upset I missed all stock on Keenan Allen.
Hey man, it's almost like we're all going to pick 3, and maybe you shouldn't be giving away others. But that's okay. I didn't actually pick Keenan, but it is funny. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just figured I'd take the second rather than toot my own horn, point out some good ones for you guys and some negative.
I mean, I will say that I'm in what, 4 redraft leagues? Yeah, I'm in 4 redraft leagues. I have Keenan Allen in 3 of them. So that's how high I was on Keenan Allen. And the only reason I didn't take him in this league is because I foolishly took Ladin Conkey.
And then the other one, I don't know if Adam, really with Puka, Puka might end up being wide receiver 1. I know Vinny was high on him, but a lot of people, because of Stafford's back and Puka's injury history. So I don't know if it's necessarily that Adam had the balls to take Puka or he just clicked the button type of thing. But yeah, those are great picks, especially Keenan Allen's the type of league winner, Alex. That's the type of person that wins you leagues. Right now, if I would have just gone Keenan Allen late in the draft at any point, I wouldn't be having a wide receiver problem right now.
Just for clarity, who was your actual pick? Because we've named 17 players. Who was your actual pick? Was it CMC?
Yeah, CMC was a good one for Vinny. And then I was jumping to you and saying your call on Keenan Allen was also really good. Because
I feel like a lot of people were high on CMC, but fair enough. All right, let's.
I don't think so, Alex. Everyone's like, yeah, CMCs could be the league winner, but put yourself in that situation where you're in DoD and the season rides on someone like CMC, where you want to win a championship and compete in the history of this league and all that BS. It's are you really going to put your year on CMC? I don't really know a lot of people that would be willing to do that.
I mean, I had him as my RB5 behind the big 4, which is Barkley, Henry, Robinson, and Gibbs.
Dude, so for me, Gibbs, Williams, Taylor, Chase Brown, Cook, I honestly would have taken any of those running backs ahead of CMC, because if I have a Cook or a Taylor right now and I missed on it, fine. But if CMC gets hurt anytime in the next couple weeks, it's gonna be you knew this, Mitch. You knew this was gonna happen. Why the hell are you doing this?
Yeah, but it just comes down to do you draft to win or not to lose, right? And that's where I ended up taking Neighbors over Amon-Ra, which again I'm already regretting. So maybe I should have drafted not to lose. But I was like, look, if Neighbors is as good as all the expert thinks he's going to be, then that's a league winning pick. Whereas Amon-Ra is the safer pick, and Amon-Ra has been much better. But anyway, let's move on. I'll give you my second player where I was correct. And this one I'm also going to go quarterback. So this one I'm going to give you Jared Goff. Jared Goff was QB6 last year, but this year nobody wanted him. In this league, he was the 13th QB taken, and that was high. Most leagues he went undrafted. In the leagues that I'm in, no one took him, not even as a backup. He returned all the same weapons, but because he had a new center, new offensive coordinator, it was like, oh, he's going to be bad now. Well, what is he right now? Oh, he's still QB6, and he's 1 point off of being QB4. And as we mentioned, some of the guys above him are guys that we don't necessarily think are going to stay there, like Caleb Williams and Danny Dimes. So, yeah, I just feel like Jared Goff, I was super high on him coming into the year. He was one of the guys that I was potentially targeting. I did have Baker higher than him. So when Baker fell to me, I ended up taking Baker. But, like, I was really high on Goff coming into this year, and I feel pretty vindicated because, like, nobody drafted him. Most leagues, he's a free agent, or maybe not now, but he was a free agent going into the year, or he was someone's backup. Even in this league, like I said, he was the 13th QB taken. Austin drafted him to be his backup quarterback behind Drake May, who, as you can see, he's outscoring currently. So, yeah, I just think Jared Goff is a baller, and people slept on him, and I was right about that, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another weird one where, like, I understand him falling out of a top area, but then eventually maybe that's where people are like, listen, we know what we're going to get out of Goff, and it's anywhere between QB 6 to 10, and you maybe take a flyer later on some of those people that you're like, okay, is there somebody that can sneak into QB 5 range like Bo Nix did last year?
There were 7 quarterbacks on my list that I would have been happy with, and he was one of the 7.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's...
Yeah, that's a high list of quarterbacks, Alex. I feel like you need to tighten that list up a little bit.
Well, not like that's because I know that I'm not the guy who takes quarterback round 1 or 2. So like that 7 includes the big 4 that everyone had. Jackson, Burrow, Allen, and Daniels, right? Like those are the big 4 everyone had going into the year. I knew I wasn't getting one of those. So really, he was one of the 3 that I was targeting. So. But I had Mayfield above him, so I took Mayfield.
I'd like to give another recognition to 2 more players.
Well, no. That's not how this works. This is you picked 3 where you were right and 3 where you were wrong. So you've given me 2 where you were right.
3 where someone else was right. It doesn't have to be where
I'm
right. I'm trying
That's
to
not the segment. Mitch, you have to leave in 15 minutes. Let's do this segment first, and then we can give honorable mentions after the segment, okay? So because you might be giving away someone else's pick. So go ahead, Mitch. Who is your 3rd that you were right about? That you were right about, not someone else.
Okay, well, I won't choose Vinny or Alex then, but I yield my 3rd one to give props to someone else. And the props that I like to look at during this draft is in the middle of the 2nd round, going James Cook over Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Nico Collins, Puka Nacua, Drake London, George Kittle, Bryant, all these great wide receivers, and you're willing to commit to going to a running back early and the correct running back. That's a tough pick. Whether in hindsight, everyone's like, yeah, it's fine. But at that time, being that person and making that pick is extremely tough.
100%. No, you were absolutely right. You made a pie bet on James Cook, and you were absolutely right. As of right now, we all thought there was going to be touchdown regression because there should have been. And he's like, nah, man, that ain't me. I'm just going to score TDs every single week.
Once he got paid, I was like, there is no doubt in my mind James Cook is a top 6 running back, top 5.
Right, but go back in history and look at the running backs who've held out and then got paid and how they did. Guys like Le'Veon Bell, Zeke Elliott. Like, these are guys who, they were great. They held out making the missed training camp, and they did not do well their first season back. And so that was kind of my thought process. James Cook is a guy who, look, he's still... Do you know what percentage of snaps James Cook plays? I can tell you. Don't look it up if you don't know. Just guess. What percentage of snaps is he in for?
78.
Oh, you guys are both high. 57. He plays 57% of offensive snaps. That's why it is wild to me that he's getting 21 carries, 19 carries. Because I had him on my team last year. He never got that many carries because he only plays 57% of the freaking snaps. But this year they're like, hey, even though he's only in for 57, any play where he's in the game, he's getting the ball. And yeah, because I knew he was good, right? If you told me that every play he played he'd get the ball, I would have picked him. But I was like, well, he only plays 50% of the plays, and only gets the ball in half of those, so he's not going to get the ball that much. So far, so good. No, and yeah, you made a pie bet on it. You were absolutely right on that. Vinny and I were both wrong, so touche. Mitch, all right, Vinny, who's your 3rd one?
Why
are you laughing? I just gave you props.
I know, because I was trying to have fun with it by taking it away from me, and it's still about me.
Well, but the thing isn't who did you pick, it's who did you have, like, I was high on Ibuka, but I didn't get to draft him because Miles did. That didn't mean I wasn't high on Ibuka. Like, if you go back and listen to the pod, I talked him up on multiple episodes. Like, I was very high on that player. Just because I didn't draft him didn't mean I wasn't right or wrong on him. I didn't draft Goff either. I did in one league, but not in this league. But, like, that didn't mean I wasn't high on him. Like, you were high on James Cook, even though you didn't take him.
I should have, though. I didn't have a chance in the...
Can you pull up their James Cook again really quick? I'm looking at okay, here this is not going to work out as well as I thought, but he's playing on average 40 snaps per game at his 56% rate. And if you go to his game log, so yeah, he touches the ball. It doesn't have targets on here, but he touches the ball 18 times week 1, so half the times he's in there. Another, so literally, yeah, like you guys are saying, like statistically speaking, he is getting a touch on 50% or more of the plays that he is in the game, and that is ridiculous. His points per 100 snaps is, I wonder if I can look at this shop. I don't know, this is a random tool that I have, but it's just for the Bills. He's scoring 48 points per 100 snaps. And, Josh Allen, for comparison, is scoring 35 points per 100 snaps. Like, that is pretty wild.
Yeah, it's pretty
I wish I could look at this from a different standpoint. But, like, that's just insane efficiency.
Yeah,
anyways,
that's one of the reason that people were, like, at least for me, like, I was never off his talent. I had him on my team last year. I know how good he was, but it was so frustrating. You'd look, he'd average 7 yards a carry, but only had 58 yards because he only got 7 carries. It's like, just give him the ball. Just give him the ball. And so now they're like, hey, what if we give James Cook the ball? And they're balling out. Even week 2, where Josh Allen did nothing, they scored no points, James Cook still balled out. So solid pick. So all right, Benny, who's your third one?
My third one, I'm going to switch it in the other direction. So not somebody that I was right about because they succeeded, but somebody I was right about because they weren't that talented. And this is another one of those kind of cascading effects is J.J. McCarthy. I would not have touched Justin Jefferson in the first round with a 10-foot pole. It just wasn't for me. It was like, why is his ADP so high? I know that O'Connell did this with Darnold last year. I know, and this isn't fair because like McCarthy only played 2 games and he sat out with an injury for the third, and out again this week with an injury apparently. But it's just the landfall of pass catching individuals on Minnesota all hinges on their quarterback. I did not believe in J.J. McCarthy, so I was out on Justin Jefferson, out on Hawkinson, out on Addison. Granted, we drafted Hawkinson in the pod league, but I did
against
think
my protest. I want to go on record. I did protest that pick when you guys had us pick it. I got but
did not believe in J.J. McCarthy. That's another one though where it's like I value some of your guys' opinions so much. Mitch thought that he had the potential to still uplift everybody. So like I do have pieces of that offense just because it's like, there's other leagues where you're like, all right, I'll take a risk that I normally wouldn't take. But this is one that I feel like I was right on. Like I didn't want to touch a JJ McCarthy product with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, no, I was right there with you on this. I talked about a lot that look, he won a national title in college, but okay, who did he play for? Michigan. How did they win a national title? They played defense and they ran the football. Well, he's a quarterback, so he's got to pass the football. And it's like, well, he can make plays with his legs. Sure, he can, but you're not going to outrun people in pro the way you do in college. Like, there are very few people that have the gifts of a Lamar Jackson who can run out in space, or a Jaden Daniels who can run in space all the time. That's not a gift that he has. So, like, that's more of he can pick up plays when he scrambles, but he's not going to be, like, designed runs a lot for him. So he's got to be able to pass. And he was never a pocket passer. His first 2 weeks, he was not good passing the football. I mean, like, he played one good quarter against Chicago, who's had a horrendous defense. He played one good quarter against them, and that's it. So I wasn't high on this guy. And yeah, that now that Carson Wentz is in there and they're balling out, like, if Carson Wentz balls out a second time, I mean, again, you can't say, oh, we're giving up on the pick, so they do have to make him the starter again. But it wouldn't surprise me if they let this injury linger longer than it should. And then if Carson Wentz keeps winning, they find another injury reason to keep him out longer.
Yeah, I think that would embarrass the whole franchise and the people who make the picks. They're not going to allow that to happen.
Right. So, well, the same argument I made with Penix. They can't bench him, Mitch. But if you say, oh, he's injured and can't play, then you're not benching him. It's an injury issue, right?
That's true. That would be pretty smart. You should be a GM. I like that
Like
a
that show
lot.
Playmakers, that wide receiver that was a Pro Bowler, and they made him go on IR and
I go
play.
on. I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, that's pretty smart. So like, I wouldn't mind all that. Yeah, I think it's this is tough. And remember, if you go back to my quote, I said, "Is there a world where McCarthy is better than Darnold?" I didn't necessarily know. Otherwise, I would have probably made a pie bet on it like I did last year. But yeah, I was a little nervous with what I saw with McCarthy too. The problem is I didn't see enough of McCarthy. At least with Darnold, you at least know he's been in the league for the last 5 years as a backup somewhere playing football.
yeah.
So
I really wish we could have gotten to see McCarthy against Cincinnati because it's like this is a terrible
true
defense. Like
test.
if you
Yeah.
go out and play against a terrible defense and you lay another egg, like that's really
Oh yeah,
bad
that's
luck.
what. Yes, it's exactly back to piggyback what you said off of. I was gonna say something along the lines, but you guys said it perfectly. It's like Penix against the Panthers D. If you put up 0 points again, then when are you gonna put up points? Win. So if McCarthy can't put up points against the Bengals, that would have been perfect for us to tell. I agree with you with everything there. Yeah, that one's tough. And also, it's very important to note that it's not even necessarily that Wentz balled out with 173 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty average, but like the reason why he did so well is because of how bad McCarthy looked the first couple of weeks. It automatically makes Wentz look better. And the most important part, on a team with that defense, with that offensive line and that running game, just play turnover free quarterback football. That's all you need. And the Vikings will go far into the playoffs. That's Darnold turned over the ball in that game against the Lions or whatever, and that's what costed him probably close to 15 to 20 million. McCarthy doesn't have to be a big time baller. Just don't turn over the ball, and you're going to have more possessions than a lot of other teams just purely based on that defense and offensive line. So, yeah, this is a big uh, red flag, and people who have any type of Vikings players are probably rooting for Wentz. This one's tough. This one I will also put into like I think I had more confidence in Kevin Connell than maybe I should have. That like no coordinator is void of the talent of the QB. You still have to have a talented QB. So I just didn't know McCarthy wasn't this talented.
All right, moving on to my third one. I also went the route of Vin. Oops, sorry, I keep doing that. I went the route of Vinny and picked someone that I was not high on, and I believe that I'm correct on that. And that is going to be DK Metcalf. And Mitch, I know you think this is a shot at you, but it's not. I was very vocal. He's on a new team. I think he's lost a step last year because he wasn't the number one wide receiver on his team. He also doesn't pair well with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is actually playing fine. But the thing is, he's a deep threat, and Rodgers is the guy who throws deep less than any other quarterback in the league. If you look at it, he only has 23% of the air yards by Rodgers. For context, last season, Devontae Adams was at 27% as Rodgers' wide receiver. And by the way, if we compare to Garrett Wilson had more catches, targets, and yards than Devontae. So I'm using Devontae as the wide receiver 2 to compare to DK wide receiver 1, and he's still less than Devontae. Devontae has a 24% target share. DK has a sub 20% target share. And again, DK is not competing with Garrett Wilson. Devontae was on pace for 141 targets. DK is only on pace for 96 targets. He's currently the wide receiver 22 on points, and that's based purely on TDs. If you look at yards, he's wide receiver 42. So if he doesn't score a TD every week, he's not startable, right? Even in a team with 2 wide receivers in a flex, you'd only start up to wide receiver 36, right? So wide receiver 42 is not a guy you're starting. So I think DK Metcalf, I was really low on him going into the year, and I think I'm right by that.
Yeah, they're obviously feeding him at the goal line, but
They are.
his stats are so funny because it's almost like he's a streaming tight end and not like a guy that you stream at tight end. His game log is 4 catches for 83 yards. Then he has 3 catches for 20, 3 catches for 32, maxing out at 7 targets. But then like 20 yards and a touchdown, 32 yards and this is like Algie Crumpler back in the day. You're like, I just want him for the touchdowns. Like that's what DK is turning into, like a streaming tight end that you drafted to be like a wide receiver 2, possibly a wide receiver 1, depending on your draft strategy in some leagues. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to discredit touchdowns because obviously he's a favorite down there, but
This
dude,
league's
you're gonna be
known
so mad by DK and for so many weeks if he's not scoring touchdowns.
for a number 2 wide receiver. I would like to put him up against anyone you guys want to put up. Also, at the same time, don't look now, but DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin are both 21 and 22 overall. I know the difference between number 16 and number 34 is the difference of like 8 fantasy points, all between 26 and 18 or whatever. So it's not that much difference. But after 3 weeks, Aaron Rodgers has two top 24, not even top 36 if we were playing a flex league or whatever, but two top 24 fantasy wide receivers right now, and a top 24 running back, and Rodgers is also top 12. So they're all starting players.
Again,
All of them.
at no point did I say anything negative about Rodgers during this. Just look at the stat line, Mitch. Like he gets bailed out by
Yeah.
these touchdowns. If not, it's 3 for 20 and 3 for 32.
But that's
He's
the
not
way
going to
it's
score a
been.
touchdown every week.
But that's the opposite. Metcalf was criticism for the last 4 years was he doesn't get enough touchdowns. He literally only gets like three a year. 6, 5. He's never breaking it over. So now you're telling me he's on a team in a non-PPR league that is very TD dependent. He's going to be someone's number 2 wide receiver, not competing against the ones. And we're like, oh, he needs TDs to be relevant. Well, a lot of those guys to be number two wide receivers in our league need TDs to be relevant. Otherwise, you're out there going for 8 catches for 67 yards or 6 catches for 67 yards. Those guys don't equal the top 24 wide receivers in our league. So I do agree that Metcalf isn't as a world beater as I would have liked him to be. But if you finish the year in the top 24, and Devontae Adams last year finished at 18 at 150 fantasy points. So Metcalf, I know, 150 might be a stretch for him this year, but that puts him right at number 24. So it's not that I feel like it's a shot at me. It's just I feel like my love of Rodgers is blinding, and your guys is wanting to argue against my love of Rodgers. But the answer is somewhere in the middle between your guys.
The difference is I even acknowledged during my argument that Rodgers has played well. I acknowledge that I was so far Aaron Rodgers has played well from a fantasy standpoint. I acknowledge that. So I'm not taking a shot at Rodgers. I'm taking a shot at Metcalf. I don't like. I guess what I'm trying to say is if you put Cortland Sutton on the Broncos, I think Cortland Sutton is a wide receiver 1 with Aaron Rodgers as quarterback.
For sure.
Whereas
right.
DK Metcalf, he is barely hanging on to wide receiver 2 status. Like you said, he's at 20. He's at 22, and the other guy on the team is at 24. Like there's a world where Calvin Austin's going to be more fantasy relevant than DK Metcalf coming in this year.
I agree, and they're probably both.
Which is why I think DK Metcalf is a bust, because Calvin Austin was undrafted and DK Metcalf was drafted to be wide receiver 2.
Correct. I agree with everything you're saying. I'm just saying if you take a step back and look at it, him comparatively to the other number 2s isn't really that terrible. But I agree. He's not a 1, and he's not as good as I probably thought. And Austin's eating into the production of Calvin Austin or whatever. But I agree. They probably will finish anywhere from 20 to 30 and not 18 to 24. So it's still not as good as I thought for sure.
I just think
he's
that
still ahead of, yeah.
I mean, look, you're right. They're feeding him at the goal line. As long as they keep feeding him at the goal line, there's hope. But if they ever get away from this, hey, let's throw 2-yard touchdown passes to him, because that's what they've been like goal line like heaven forbid they ever figure out how to run the football. If they start running in these goal line carries instead of throwing them to DK Metcalf, I think he's worthless. But we'll see. But anyway, now let's move on. That's
the one last thing I'll say, Alex.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one last thing I'll say is the statistic of throwing the fade. Rodgers throws the fade, I think 20% more than the second highest QB in the league. QBs don't throw the fade in the 5-yard line or the 10-yard line anymore, or 5 to 7 yards goal line anymore. It's just kind of like a dying thing, I think. But Rodgers has no problem doing it. That's like a staple of his offense. So I know if you watched last week, they threw the fade to Calvin Austin, which is weird. So like I get that, but I don't know if we're Wesley worried about these these goal line TDs being taken away because of Rodgers' propensity to throw the fade, whereas no other QBs in the league are really throwing it anymore. All right, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, but I mean that just goes to not being a good match, because like he's a guy who throws fades as opposed to guys who throws deep balls, and DK Metcalf is more of a deep ball guy. But anyway, let's like I said, let's move on. Mitch, you go first because you're almost at your heart out here. Who are the guys you were wrong about?
Oh wow, there are so many.
Well, you're supposed to have 3. I gave you a week to prepare. Did you not prepare any?
I did. Well, I wanted to go. I'm just looking at my list right now and seeing which one. Like we could go with the one that we've talked about with Burrow. I'm not sure because Burrow didn't look all that good in the first couple weeks, even before he got hurt. So that could be the low hanging fruit. Josh Jacobs is another one I would like to put up there. I had him a lot lower, and he seems to be like, man, they just don't run the ball to anyone else in Green Bay. They just give it to Jacobs, and that's it.
Well, and I'll say on that one, like, that was why I was high. I mean, obviously Jacobs not as high as I'd like him to be yet, but he last week he played the Browns, so I'm not going to hold that against him, right? The reason I was so high on Jacobs is because there was no one else taking carries from him last season, and they didn't bring in anyone this year to take carries from him. He was limited in practice all week last week, and he still got the lion's share of the carries. Like, and he had 9 targets. Like, 9 targets for a guy who's pretty much a runner, like, that's big game. He's had 20 plus touches in every single game this season, and that's why I like a guy like Jacobs. Any guy who's going to get 20 plus touches is a guy that I want, as long as his offensive line is not complete ass, which the Packers line isn't compared to some of the other guys that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Wrong also, I guess you could throw in Quentin Johnson being the number 1 receiver on the Chargers. Definitely
not just number 1 on the
way
Chargers.
off.
He's a top 5 fantasy wide receiver right now, and he was a
He's
free agent
top
of this
fantasy
week.
wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm pissed that Chris got him, man. I wanted him after trading away Vlad. Like, if I could have upgraded from the number 3 Chargers wideout to number 1, I would have looked like make it out like a bandit on that trade.
But for the answer, I'll go with this one before we rotate around the horn.
Wait, hold on. You just gave me 3 and none of them were your guy?
I told you there's a lot. Yeah, I got a lot.
That's not how these segments work. You do this every week. Mitch, the whole point is, like, you pick 3, right? Because if you pick every single player, there's no one left for me and Vinny to pick. You pick 3.
There's plenty of
we
players.
pick 3. No. That's not how it works.
You guys don't think
though.
after I name like 8 players, you guys aren't wrong about any players anymore? That's
no,
rich.
but I did research on this and came up with 3 names with a list of reasons, as opposed to let me just pick 17 guys that I didn't do right on.
I didn't do right on a lot of guys, and I'm admitting it.
Yeah, but that's not the segment. Every week you find a way to ruin my segments. You know what?
That's the whole point.
Next week, Mitch, you're coming up with a segment. I'm telling you right now.
I can't ruin it.
Exactly.
Ruin my own
next week is going to be your segment,
content.
your rules, and if you don't have a segment, next week the podcast is going to be dead air. This is all on you from now on. Next week is the Mitch Black segment.
Yeah, Nostra dumbass.
Yeah, that's how you feel.
Yeah, no one's even used his Nostradamus his lingo, and it's very obvious.
You laughed at it. You thought it was witty, and you know it. You laughed when I first
noticed. I've been trying to go against it every single week since the first week. So.
Yeah, because you're a dick.
Okay, my answer is Chase Brown. There you go. Let's move on.
Well, yeah, that's a great answer, but I have a stat on Chase Brown. Since you didn't do any research, I did, even though he's not one of my guys.
Okay, help me out.
Chase Brown has 45. Chase Brown has the lowest rushing yards by any running back in history through 3 weeks with at least 45 touches. In history, there has never been a running back less efficient than Chase Brown.
So it was a good answer by me.
It's a great answer, but I did research on it. You didn't. Last week, for context, he had 14 touches for 7 yards. I didn't make that up. He touched the ball 14 times with carries and catches for a combined 7 yards.
Okay, I'll let one of you go so I don't name 7 more guys.
Yeah, I mean, Chase Brown obviously is the easiest one for me to kind of be like, oh, I was totally wrong about that. But since technically he's already off the board, I think it's not just being wrong because he's playing terrible. Like, he is so bad right now that it's like, how did any of us possibly have him as a top 10 running back with a potential top 5? You know, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
I don't
think we've all been that
the
wrong
Bengals are just that bad.
That's why I didn't want to say it because of the Burrow thing. That's why I started out the segment with Burrow, and then I named like 3 other guys. But yeah.
Yeah,
it's just because
I think I read somewhere he has negative 54 yards before contact, but I'm not able to validate.
That's crazy.
That's like my Alshon Jenti stat. Alshon Jenti has 144 rushing yards this season. He has 145 rushing yards after contact. So what that means is he's getting hit in the backfield so often that he has more yards after contact than total yards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's tough.
So was your first one also Chase Brown? That's fine if it wasn't.
No, I'm gonna give another one. Just because since he's technically
don't
off
give too many.
No, he's off the board. You picked it
because you've already taken 7, so we have to. Yeah.
I didn't know it worked like that. Sorry, guys.
Somebody I was super wrong about, and I'm sorry, Alex, but I was also really high on this guy and had him high. I did not expect the Keenan Allen effect. It is for sure Ladd McConkey. Dude, he's sitting at wide receiver 54 in a standard league right now.
He's no longer my problem. He's now Sylvie's problem, but yeah.
I know. He was your problem until you colluded, but you know, it is what it is.
Colluded. This guy.
Yeah, so he's on 9 targets, 5 targets, 7 targets. He's 7-4-4 in our league as far as points are concerned. I It's just really tough to sit here and be like, I was right about Loud McConkey because I was really high on him. Like I drafted him in the second round of PPR leagues. So man, that's a bust. That's a
Yeah,
bust
a
for me.
couple things worked against him. One, and I should have realized this, which is why I took Keenan Allen in every other league. But this one, look, Keenan Allen was Justin Herbert's guy, and then he got his guy back. Like people think, oh, Keenan Allen's not good because he had a bad year in Chicago, but who doesn't? Chicago sucks. So I think that was part of it. And then obviously the thing no one saw coming was no one saw Quentin Johnson emerging as an actual player. But that's kind of happened. But what these stats don't tell you is two things. One, he is getting targets. There were a couple of PIs that he drew against Denver, so he is getting other targets that aren't necessarily accounted for because of PIs. But what this stat doesn't show, his target share has gone down each week. So 9 targets, 5 targets, 7 targets. His target share has gone down each week, meaning they are throwing to him less and less each week compared to the other guys on the roster, which are Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnson, and even Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton had a bunch of targets this past week now that Najee is out. So I think Omarion Hampton has a 15% target share, which is going to start eating into the ones that kind of Lad might have gotten. So yeah, I think it's a solid pick. Then you mind if I go to my next one, just because I'm trying to get as many out of Mitch before he has to leave. Okay, so my first one here that I was wrong about, but in a good way, Javonte Williams. He was, no exaggeration, on my big board. The Cowboys backfield was the last ranked backfield on my board. I even had terrible ones like there were a few backfields where you didn't know who was going to be the guy. Texans, Giants, Jaguars, Browns, Redskins, etc. Like, you weren't sure, Broncos. You weren't sure like who's going to be the actual guy. Maybe you had inklings, but there wasn't like a clear-cut number one. Out of all those backfields, I had the Cowboys as the lowest one on my big board, Javonte Williams. I ended up drafting him anyway, and man, has that worked out. And I know what you're thinking, well, like, oh, he's just gotten a couple of touchdowns, so it makes his stats look better. Yes, that makes his stats look better, but let me give you some more stats. He's RB4 in points, but he's RB7 in rushing yards. So it's not like, oh, well, he's only getting touchdowns. No, he is a top 7 running back as far as getting rushing yards. So when you're getting yards and touchdowns, like that's big game. So I think I was just way wrong on him because I was so low on their backfield, and like I said, he's got 227 rushing yards. Only 3 of the guys above him have more yards, and Bijan only has 2 more yards than him, right? Like he's solid.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That is like the one backfield I wanted no part of across the board. I was like, I refuse to. Like, I wouldn't even have taken the risk that you took drafting him late, Alex. Like, that's how little I wanted him. I would have drafted backups like Ollie Gordon, Trey Benson, Brian Robinson. I would have drafted Ray Davis, Rashad White. I would have drafted all those dudes ahead of Javonte Williams. And
And one thing I didn't even
did.
mention is look at the targets, by the way, for running backs. He's 5th in targets. So he's getting carries and targets. Like, that's RB1 material, and he's playing like an RB1. I'm not starting him this week because he's playing Green Bay, who's been a great defense. And now that Lamb's out, I think that might be a little harder to run. But, yeah, I think I was way wrong on this guy. Mitch, you still with us, bud, or do you have to take off?
No, I got you. I was just deciding on how many names to name right now.
Just
before I
seriously,
got off
please, just
here.
one. Your heart out was 8 minutes ago. Please just give us one name so we can get through the segment before you leave.
We know which one you want me to say, but I'm not going to say it. So I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara. I did say that I think there was going to be someone on the Saints that could be a top 12 to 18 running back somewhere in there because of the Kellen Moore system. But I said Kamara was the prototype opposite running back of what Kellen Moore likes. Well, it turns out Kamara is just so heavily talented that it doesn't matter what prototype he is. He just can fit in any offense. And Kellen Moore seems to be using him pretty heavily.
Yeah, he's getting 20 plus touches a game on average.
Yeah. So I was definitely wrong about that one. I know you want me to say RJ Harvey, but I'm not going to.
No, I mean you should, but I'm not going to make you say it. No. Okay, Kamara. Yeah, I mean Kamara. I also wasn't very high on Kamara, but but that's because normally he like gets passing down work and not running work. But the last two games, 21 carries, 18 carries. And by the way, that 18
Yeah.
carries, like, oh, it was a close game. They were running the ball. No, no, no. That was like a 50-point blowout. They got smashed. And they still like, hey, let's
Yeah.
run the ball like Kamara. So, yeah, they're clearly going to have him as a feature back. And anytime you have a guy getting the ball in a feature
18
situation,
times.
you know.
Yeah. Looks pretty good.
All right, Vinny, who's your
Um,
number two?
yep.
Uh, yeah. So my number two, I'm gonna flip it on like what Mitch said earlier, where he kind of voluntold me to take ETN, which was on my list. I just tried not to be super biased on like who I was right about, but who I was wrong about was I was kind of bashing. It wasn't just the Jaguars backfield. I was all in on the Jaguars offense. So for me, I mean, the low-hanging fruit is Brian Thomas, but I mean, I'll also throw in Trevor Lawrence, Travis Hunter, Brian, like just anybody involved in the pass catching of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was obviously really wrong about. I think Travis Hunter is even down at like wide receiver like 92 or
Yeah, I don't
something
think I
like
can
that.
scroll that far.
Um, Wide receiver 89 for Travis Hunter. And let's see what Trevor Lawrence is sitting at QB, what, 20, 21? 24, QB 24. So yeah, I'm just, dude, I was wrong. Like Liam Cohen, I think there's still time to turn around that offense and that pass catching abilities, but dude, they're all abysmal. And even though I was high on them, the one thing I will succeed in is like I told you guys from the get-go, I was all in on Jacksonville's offense, but Brian Thomas was ranked as like wide receiver 5 on analyst boards, and I was like, I don't want to invest that high in that guy.
Dude, look
But
look at the efficiency. He has caught 7 out of 25 targets.
yeah,
That is
and he has multiple
abysmal.
drops too, I think.
He
Yeah, that's
does, but there's
terrible.
also balls that are nowhere near him. Like just, but yeah, it's definitely not. I'm not blaming Lawrence for this. Like he's had multiple drops, but like that's probably one of the worst efficiencies I have ever seen for a wide receiver one on a team. Like Malik Neighbors got targeted 170 times last year, and I think even he had a better catch rate than that.
I
Yeah.
do have to go out my heart, so I'll give you my third one. It's
Yeah,
an
go ahead.
open-ended one, so I'll be interested to hear your guys' answers. But this one, I didn't know whether to put a right or wrong next to. You guys know how I felt about Neighbors. If you look at his stats so far, it's been like 6, 26, and 1. So he's had one good week out of the threes, and thankfully that week was against the Cowboys defense where he went off for 28 fantasy points. So open-ended question to both of you. I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for doing this every week. But I do have to go. Am I wrong? Because you guys knew about how I felt about Neighbors. So am I wrong or right at this moment about Neighbors? Bye, guys. Have fun.
See you, man. I'm
Yeah.
gonna. Well, I mean, obviously I'm biased because he's on my team, but I'm going to say wrong for now. Week one, he had 12 targets, caught 5 of them for 71 yards. That's fine. Like that's look, a touchdown would have made that great, but like 5 for 71 on 12 targets, that's a good game. Obviously, the Dallas game, he was amazing. Last week he was terrible, but Kansas City's pretty good. And if you watch that game, Russell Wilson was abysmal. Like the two catches on 7 is a terrible catch rate. That's not because of him. Those passes, multiple targets that he had were balls that were so underthrown that like he could have made a diving attempt and still not got a hand on it, and they got picked off. So like I don't really blame him for week 3. Now Jackson Dart's going to come in, so it's just going to depends on how he works with Dart. If he and Dart have good rapport, then Dart's going to pepper him with passes because he'll be his favorite target, and that's what rookie QBs do. And great. If Dart's favorite target is Wandell Robinson, then that's going to be terrible for Malik Neighbors. On my big board, I had Amon Ra ahead of Malik Neighbors, and then I panicked and took Neighbors over Ra for the home run chance, and I definitely regret that decision because of how good Amon Ra's been. So I definitely wish I'd taken Ra over Neighbors, but right now, Neighbors was drafted to be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. He's currently wide receiver 6. So I don't think it's a. I think it's fine for now, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Vinny?
No, I mean I agree with that. I think Neighbors will rebound. I still a guy. Dude, it's so hard. I want to say the caveat to all this is like we're making these decisions based on 3 weeks. We could come back in 3 more weeks and be like, I was wrong about who I was wrong about. I was wrong about who I was right about. I was right about who, you know what I mean? Like
Oh yeah, for sure.
I
I mean,
might
and that's part of the fun too. But
I might be
yeah.
Nostradamus in 3 weeks based on everything I said today. So I wanted to say that as in like Neighbors is still a guy that I'm like in on. You know, it's hard. I'm still not like out on McConkey. I'm still not out on Brian Thomas. I'm still not out on Drake London. But like after 3 more weeks, I will be. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for sure. All right, let me give my next one because we kind of skipped mine. Just skip Mitch's. So my next one, Evan Ingram. I was very high on him going into the season. I think I mentioned him on the pod as well. He led all tight ends in receptions 2 years ago. But then last year, it didn't quite have the same season. He was hurt for a little bit. Trevor Lawrence was hurt for a little bit. Didn't really work out. But 2 years ago, he led all tight ends in catches. And then he's now gone to the Broncos, who going into the season, the Broncos had Cortland Sutton as a clear-cut number one. They did not have a clear-cut number two target in the passing game. They were going to have new running backs. The wide receivers they have are second and third year guys who haven't really established themselves. Sean Payton is a guy, as the coach of the Broncos, is a guy who knows how to use tight ends. So I was really high on Evan Ingram. He's currently tight end number 51, and he's not even tight end one in his own team. There's a guy on his team that's currently higher than him in points, and he's hurt. So just all combined, I could not have been more wrong. I'm very thankful that Cameron ended up taking him and not me, because I ended up getting Njoku, who I had slightly higher because of Flacco. That pick also didn't work out great, but man, am I glad I didn't take this guy.
Yeah. No, you and Mitch were both kind of high on him. I don't want to say he's a player I was right about, but I was not a guy on my radar. Okay, so here, let's put it this way. It's what I like to look at historically, like I know Sean Payton has produced high-end tight ends, but sometimes like you have to look at what a team did. Do you know how many times like Seattle got a new tight end and it was like, oh, Russell Wilson is throwing to Pat Freiermuth, or Russell Wilson's throwing to Jimmy Graham in Seattle. Like Russell Wilson has never produced a good tight end. And I know Bo only had 1 year, but like their tight end last year didn't do anything. Like sometimes historical takes on that, like that's just the reason I wasn't high on Ingram. Like I hate that you're eating crow on it, but um I think we lose sight of sometimes you just have to look like what has this quarterback or this system done with tight ends, and it's been a long time since Sean Payton put a producing tight end in the world, you know? So
Yeah, but I mean,
um
in my defense, like it wasn't so much like I didn't think he was going to be Jimmy Graham, but it was more of a this is a guy who is a ball hawk. He's a what's the word I'm looking for? He's like a possession receiver, and I think that was like what I was hoping that he could be, right? So like if you look at the 2 full seasons he played in Jacksonville, right? 73 catches for 766 yards, 114 catches for 963. Again, last year he got hurt, but even if you map out the rest of the season, he would have had somewhere in the vicinity if he played, he played 9 games, missed 8, so he would have had around 87 catches for, 700 yards. Like that's solid, right? That's 3 solid years in a row. So that's what I was hoping for, but yeah, that is not panned out at all.
yeah.
All right, Vinny, who's your number 3?
This is like a tough one because keep in mind I am not necessarily scrambling, but Chase Brown was on my list, so I've been trying to scroll and figure out who I
I mean, you
want
can just say it, like but just because Mitch
to.
decided to
It's
be a
fine.
jerk and name 27 guys.
No, I think I guess what I'll do is this. This is an idea that I had anyways. Is piggybacking off your being wrong about Javonte Williams, me agreeing with you being wrong about Javonte Williams. I was so high on Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. Maybe not Ferguson so much, but thought he had potential because I thought the Cowboys would throw the ball 100 times a game, especially after they traded Parsons. I'm like, oh my God, their defense is going to suck. They're still throwing the ball a lot with terrible efficiency. I was so wrong on Dak because I was just wrong on that offense. Every time I see Javonte Williams get a 5 or 6 yard carry, like it was um, easy, I get more and more frustrated. I settle on this because I'm like I don't want to say that just pick players on my team, but somehow I ended up with all those like players that I was so stoked on some of my team because I thought I was right on all of them, and then the ones I was wrong on have really hurt. But yeah, Dak, dude, it's brutal. Like I am going to be starting Caleb Williams, who is your antichrist. Like I think
I just think he's not a good
you know
football player. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't dislike him as a human
yeah.
being. I just think he's not good at football.
Yeah, Yeah. So I will be starting Caleb Williams the foreseeable future, not necessarily because of how well he's been doing, but because of how bad Dak has been doing. And now without CeeDee Lamb, I know it's not injury dependent, but like he was borderline not startable with CeeDee Lamb. So yeah, Dak for sure, and the trickle effect of the entire Cowboys offense.
Fair enough. All right. My last, yeah, I mean, I also was really high on them. Now, I will say CD Lamb's went over the century mark in the two games he played. Then he had that unfortunate injury. So we'll see how that goes. But I was very high on CD. I was high on Pickens. Pickens has let me down a little bit. And so has Dak to an extent, but we'll see. There's still a lot of games left to play, but he did lay an egg against Chicago. But I think part of that is he lost CD Lamb. I think those two guys need to have each other on the field, and we'll see how it looks once they're both back together. My third one, uh, JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. I was so low on him because he had a new quarterback. Like Geno Smith threw more times than anybody last year. Like our second most. They were throwing the ball, a ton of times, and he was the most targeted. But now, like, okay, you've got a new quarterback, and there's no DK Metcalf. And even though I think DK's lost a step, he's still going to pull away some of that coverage. And Cooper Kupp, I thought was a little washed. So he's not going to pull the coverage away the same way DK would. So I wasn't super high on him, but man, I couldn't have been more wrong. He's wide receiver 8 on points, wide receiver 2 on yards, and wide receiver 3 on catches. So this is a guy who just absolutely balling right now, and I did not have him rated highly at all, and man, did I miss on that one.
What's so funny is it almost double stings following up what I said, only because in our draft, I had Jackson Smith and Jigba queued up. I was going to take him. It was going to be a 1 second pick if I could just click fast enough. And, Austin took him 3 picks before me, and that's why I took Dak. I pivoted to the quarterback route because I was like, all right, this is who I want on the board. But I thought JSN should have gone ahead of multiple players that he was drafted behind. I had him higher than Sutton, higher than Tyreek, higher than Devontae Adams. And in that same realm of the Lad McConkeys, he was in my tier two with like Brian Thomas, Lad McConkey, JSN. Like he was in my top 10 to 12. So yeah, it's funny how it's dude, fantasy football is so wild. Like we all have our own opinions, and I mean he was ranked pretty high across a lot of boards too. So I think what I'm learning more and more about fantasy football is, dude, be high who you're high on, be low who you're low on. Sometimes these analysts get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. But the amount of times that I've made a split decision against my gut based on a ranking, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go with this guy because he's ranked a little bit higher on 3 different panels. Even though like I think this guy's better, but I might be able to grab him a half round or a round later. That I feel like that mentality hoses me more often than not.
100%. Like
So
I have nightmares every night about like so I talk about this off air, but like on my big board, Amon Ra, I had as my third wide receiver after Chase Brown and CeeDee Lamb, but I took Neighbors over him. Amon Ra was there, and it's like as it stands, Amon Ra has 10 more fantasy points, which like okay, sure, whatever. They both had one bad game and 2 decent games, so like that's fine. But it's like just from watching the games, like there's so many question marks around Malik Neighbors because of the quarterback situation, whereas like there's no question marks around Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's just a guy. And if I had just gone with my gut, what my rankings were, and not what all the if you went to any website, CBS, Yahoo, ESPN, Fantasy Focus, like any ranking website, they had Malik Neighbors ranked higher. And it's like, man, if I just gone with my
yeah.
rankings, I'd be feeling a lot better about my team right now.
Yeah, and I think it's so funny, like, and not to make this about my team or your thoughts, but like, I look at like these round 3 wide receivers we keep talking about in our league, where it went Nico Collins, and Nico's a weird one. Like, I'm still not ready to say that he's washed because like the whole
I
entire
don't think it's
Texans
his
offense,
fault. Like if you look at like
yeah,
yeah,
their entire offense has been abysmal, and it's really weird, right? You're like nobody can quite figure out how like CJ Stroud is as bad as he is. Like as successful as they've been over multiple years, like a regression is coming to success, so to speak. But like I look at that tier of Drake London, Brian Thomas, T. Higgins, AJ Brown, Mike Evans, Lad McConkey, we can throw in JSN depending on where you ranked it. And like I look at that tier and it's like, dude, the rankings and these analysts told us all these are the guys you need to pick. Brian Thomas is top five. Drake London is top five. You know, AJ Brown is still elite. T Higgins can be top five. And like in my gut, I was like, I'm not ready to put them there. But you never want to be wrong on years that like they're supposed to make that huge leap. Like CBS was super low on Drake London. I remember that. But like everything else that I saw, they had him as like five or six. And we were all hinging on, oh, he had three really good games with Michael Penix, right? But like besides that, he's been pretty mid. Like he was a good wide receiver, but not great wide receiver last year. So for somebody who is fully healthy. So it's so I don't know. I think the takeaway from this Nostradamus or Nostradamus, like we've mentioned, is like, man, these ranking systems and these analysts can really start to screw you a little bit, you know? Like, dude, you were so high on Cortland Sutton, and he goes at the end of round four behind all these guys, right? And
Well,
right
look,
now
look
he's
how
wide
low he is
receiver.
on this. I've got it sorted by this is preseason rankings, by the way. So this is where CBS had them before the season. Look how low
Yeah, I
Cortland
mean,
Sutton
look how
is.
low they are on Almond St. Brown, and how high they are on Marvin Harrison and Terry McLaurin. Like,
Yeah.
it's so hard. There's no way they thought Devontae Adams was higher than Puka and Amon Ra. Like that is why that's just I guess that's the nature of these analysts. But yeah, I think if anything from Nostradamus and Nostradamus, not to beat a dead horse, is like sometimes you gotta go with your gut. Like I'm so sick of these like we're also worried about the bad reach, and I know that it can screw your team, but like we're also worried about the bad reach or the flack that we're gonna get from reaching. Do you think if Mitch reached on J.K. Dobbins instead of R.J. Harvey, like right now anybody would be saying anything? Or, you know, if you reached on Keenan Allen or if I reached on ETN because I was convinced that the Jags offense was good, like people aren't going to say anything bad when it's successful, but then they're going to harp on you when it's wrong. But like that's the nature of fantasy. Look what we all did in the first and second round. You took Neighbors, he hasn't been great. I took Chase Brown, he's been horse crap, right? So we're getting screwed by following these analysts in our gut sometime, not necessarily our gut on like the ranking system when, man, dude, I wish I could just have the confidence to take ETN or like somebody that I'm super high on in the fourth round. You know what I mean? Like or like everybody complaining, oh, I can't believe Tyler Warren fell so far. Like, well, then take him as the tight end five. You know, don't make him be tight end 10. Um, anyways, that's my rant. I didn't think I was going to go there, but apparently I did.
Fair enough. All right. Here's another little fun thing. So the tush push been in the news as always. You know, lots of drama around it. Well, the Bucks are playing the Eagles this week, and you know what the Bucks went and did? They went and signed a house to play interior lineman. They signed a 464-pound gentleman to help defend against the tush push. Now they've said, "Oh, this is not related to the tush push," but come on, man, you don't go and sign this guy to plug the middle the week before playing the Eagles after you're 3-0, right? You didn't think like, "Oh no, we need another interior D lineman." Nah, man, they got this guy for a reason. I just thought this was
Yeah,
interesting.
no, I think this is the poor guy that was so big. Um, I think did they draft him or sign him as an unrestricted free agent? He never practiced. He would just be out there walking laps as they tried to get him in like what they call football shape. So I'm like, what did he do for 4 years in Florida that like he goes to the NFL and he's literally just walking laps constantly around the field? But yeah, this is for sure about the tush push. But I'm also not sure like how could your fitness be so bad from college to the pros that they're like, dude, you're so unhealthy, like you can't even practice yet here he is like playing a game. Oh yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, I think he just now passed his physical after like they signed him a couple days ago, and they just passed his physical.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, dude, I would just like even if he doesn't get a push, just like lay down and clog the whole thing, you know? Like dive at the center's feet immediately if you're that big.
Yeah. All right.
Actually, I'm looking at pictures of the tush push, and everybody's talking about like if you're in a 3-point stance, how low you have to get. Like, why not just literally lay him down on his stomach in front of the ball? Like, then you can't block. Like, and then just have like someone like jump over to take on Hurts or something. I don't know. You're not going to get lower than the tush push and their offensive line, so start lower.
All right, moving along. Let's take a look at our podcast league team here. I hate to show it, but I feel obligated to do so because,
Uh,
yeah, we drafted a team, because we're experts. We lost to Go Ducks. This was the guy we made fun of for auto drafting and auto drafting terribly. And man, did he get lucky. Jordan Mason is now a starter. He wasn't when he drafted him, obviously. Trey Benson's now a starter. Wasn't when he drafted him. He drafted kicker super early, and his kicker played. Yeah, obviously it didn't help that we have T. Higgins. Saquon had a bad game. So our team didn't really do us any favors, but man, losing to Go Ducks hurts. Hey, we're now 1-2 in this league. Hard to call ourselves fantasy experts when we had the team that was the highest rated in the draft. We got an A+, but it has not worked out for us so far.
yeah, but dude, it's just, yeah, it's an unfair analysis though when you think about losing Joe Burrow, who we took in probably like the fourth or fifth round, something kind of early, I think. I know our top three picks were Saquon, Achane, maybe the fifth round because we took Higgins. Um, and then, not only do we lose our starting quarterback and then have to fill it off of waivers, then our number two wide receiver in Higgins' value plummets. So, like, we lose easily 20 points a week in fantasy value on a tier down in quarterback and a tier down in RB2. So, um, I don't want to sit here and say we're terrible, but when you have stuff like that, we needed Achan to be better than he is, and we need Saquon to be Saquon. You know what I mean? So, uh, losing to Go Ducks hurts. So, oh, they're 2-1. We didn't even just lose; they're 2-1.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Turns out drafting the number one kicker, tight end, and quarterback to basically start your draft is not the worst play.
Yeah, clearly not. Obviously, the first good week Devonta Smith has is against us. That hurts. Just, man, a lot of things went against us this week, to be honest. But yeah, we'll see.
What does our boy Third and Allen have to do to crack the lineup at this point? I mean, are we? I think he has to be in over T Higgins.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess we should go ahead and look at what we're gonna do for this week. So yeah, that was the change I made. Keenan Allen in, T Higgins out. Really not any other changes we can make, to be honest, because nothing else we have is any good on the bench at this point. We're kind of waiting on. We're basically like we got what we got, and we're hoping for Rashee Rice to come back and be a guy, because like T Higgins is not it. He's playing Denver this week, but yeah, just until the Bengals turned it around, I don't think he's startable. Pacheco is losing the job currently. It feels like to Kareem Hunt. Calvin Ridley has done literal nothing. Look at this: 7 targets, only 1 catch. He's he's not startable. Not sure what that is, but all right. Hollywood Brown hasn't done anything since we picked him up. He had that one good week where we were high on him, and then nothing. So yeah, I did pick up Hunter Henry and drop Jordan Love. Danny Dimes seems to be legit, so I think we roll with that. If Hunter Henry continues to pop off like he did this week, like weeks 1 and 3 were very, very good for him. If he continues to do that, we might consider putting him over Juwan Johnson, but for now, in a half-point PPR, Juwan Johnson seems fine. He's getting a lot of targets, a lot of catches. Yeah. So.
And playing the Bills, I know it's not a good matchup for him, but like they're going to be down by 30 to start the game.
Which means they're going to be passing the ball a lot, and he's going to get a lot of targets. He's second, I think, in targets behind Olave. So.
Yeah, and that's one of those like ranking things. Like, who have the Bills played so far?
Ravens week 1.
Ravens week 1 and did not. I mean, Mark Andrews was terrible that game. They're without Isaiah Likely. Then I know they played the Dolphins week 3. Week 2, do you remember who it was?
Week 2 is the week they didn't do anything offensively because they didn't need to.
Oh, correct.
Was it the Jets?
I think you're right.
Here, let me.
Yes, they blew out the Jets, I think, because that's the game that. Yes, 30-10.
Yeah, it was the Jets, and then this week Miami.
So, anyways, just saying, like, it's like right now Juwan Johnson's playing. Oh, the opponent rank is 31st, and it's a terrible matchup, and it's like, yeah, but they played a bad Mark Andrews with no Isaiah Likely, a tight end I don't even know for the Jets. I literally couldn't tell you who it is, and I couldn't tell you who it is for the Dolphins either. So it's like
you'd be surprised. Do you know who the Dolphins signed out of retirement? Darren Waller.
Darren Waller still
Yeah.
hasn't played,
But
right?
he hadn't played yet, yeah, because just like the reason he retired in the first place, he can't get on the field. Always hurt.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. So, or because he has to make a breakup song about his. Anyways,
All right, I'm gonna go. Getting time to wrap it up here. I'll go ahead and give a little teaser. One interesting matchup for this week for those who like football. The Packers are going to be playing the Cowboys this week. The whole Micah Parsons trade. Fun fact, not a lot of things move the number in football. It's usually quarterbacks that move the number. The Packers' odds of winning the Super Bowl went from 18-1 to 12-1 when they acquired Micah Parsons, which is a huge swing. Cowboys went from 55-1 to 65-1. Parsons wanted to stay. Cowboys got him. Didn't want to keep him. They got him out of there, and now we're about to see if he can get his revenge game. And it's a game where there's no CeeDee Lamb, so I got to fill in Dax in for a rough week.
yeah, probably. I will say, I know a lot of people were against it. I think they maybe could have gotten more value for Parsons, possibly, but. Dude, when you're sitting there having to sign a $50 million per year defensive end and your Super Bowl odds are 55-1, maybe you do trade Micah Parsons,
Yeah, but it needs to be
So,
something you plan to do, not a knee-jerk reaction, right?
I agree.
It was
I
a
agree.
knee-jerk, let's get rid of him now, and yeah. Anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. A little teaser for next week. Well, this is what I was going to do next week. We may not do it because Mitch ruins everything, and I'm going to make him come up with a plan. But assuming he doesn't come up with a plan like he's supposed to, next week, I want to know what your best fantasy roster of players in their prime all time would be. So I just want to clarify. I don't mean take like, oh well, the best fantasy season ever from each of these players, right? That's not fair. I'm talking about like if every player since we started doing fantasy football over the last 20 years, if every single player was currently playing and in their prime, who would make the best team, right? So I'm not saying well Cooper Kupp had the best season ever, right? But would you take Cooper Kupp in his prime over Megatron in his prime? I don't know. You know what I mean? So like that's what I'm getting at. I want to know who you think would be the best fantasy team if you just had them in their prime. Not based on what their best year was. Hopefully that makes sense. Just if they were in their prime going into a year blind, who would you take? So that's my teaser. We may or may not do that next week depending on whether or not Mitch actually comes up with a segment. We'll see. Thank you all for listening.
I'm
Any final
having
words,
a
Vin?
really hard time thinking that any of us pick a running back duo different than each other. But I'm very thrilled. I'm very thrilled. This
Yeah,
will be
I think
fun.
it'll be a fun one. So we'll see. And obviously, feel free to leave your stuff in the comments if you guys have guesses. Vinny, go ahead and say goodbye to all the people out there.
Goodbye, peeps. I must say I know that it frustrates Alex, but one of my favorite things is that Mitch somehow cannot play any game that we sign up for.
Hey,
I was having a hard time not falling to tears while Mitch refused to play people I was right on or people I was wrong on.
what frustrates me is like I'm trying to make content for a podcast so that it's entertaining, and he's actively working against that. It's like, but you want our podcast to be good too, right? Like if you do, you should play along with the game. And it was really frustrating because like the first week, like he wasn't purposely ruining my segment. He was just so bad that it ruined my segment. Now I think it's evolved into he's purposely ruining my segment, but it's still frustrating just for a different reason. So
Yeah, no, I get it. But if I will say, the main reason that, I even thought about asking you guys to do this podcast is for those exact moments. So I love it, everything
yeah,
about it. It's because the two of you are a perfect dynamic of uh, organization and chaos. So I do appreciate when
when we
it
play
falls
each other
off the
this week,
room.
so hopefully I'll get some revenge this week if possible. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, my only thing to help you this week is I play Matt, so I can
So I need
help
you to
maybe bump
finally be good for
sparks
once.
down. Do you want to talk off air about lineup changes?
Yeah, real quick. I didn't go around the league this week. We didn't have time, but I'll just go through it. Matt destroyed me. My team laid an egg. Austin destroyed Chris. His team laid an even bigger egg. Game of the week here. Two of the top scoring teams. Dad gets the W over Mitch. He's always had Mitch's number. I think he probably has more wins over Mitch than anybody. Uh,
38 points from a defense, by the way. I don't know how you overcome 38 points from a defense.
yeah, that was a big game from the D there. Vikings D. Isaiah had 2 touchdowns. He's a defensive player. Had 2 TDs that game. Luis, another big game out of Luis. But again, that's because look at Sylvie's team. A lot of plus signs and IR signs on the week 3 roster. Unfortunate for her. a tie for Hadouken and the Yak of Lamb here. Yeah, rare to have ties, but we got one here. Came down to Lions D versus Jameson Williams, and ended up being in a tie game here. Henry's fumble cost him, if not for the fumble. Although I guess that just kind of a wash, right? Because that's 2 points. Yeah, that actually doesn't affect anything. No, so yeah, just a tie. Could have gone either way, but it ended up breaking even. And then the Penguins absolutely destroyed Team Phoenix.
Just railroaded.
Yeah, every single player on break squad in double digits. That you're not gonna win games like that very often. So
Talk about an uninteresting week. I mean, I know Mitch and Nolan's game was close, but Mitch had a lot of people on Monday night. I think.
Yeah, this game wasn't like everyone kind of knew the game was over, and then Mitch had a couple guys on Monday night that made it seem closer than it was. But no, this game was over.
Yeah. So we have like an average win margin of 40 points and a tie.
This was the only good game of the week. Yeah, and by good game I mean it was a close scoring. It was very low scoring compared to
74-74.
But yeah, all right. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace. Adios.